Hey everyone, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. I am that guy lost in another dimension, Justin.
I am a sentient pile of needles who also interrupted Dan, and I'm really sorry about that.
I'm the priest, Dan.
We're calling you from now on.
That must be your priest. I was going to say your priest mistake, but I meant chief mistake.
Oh, nice try. It's a slant rhyme.
Hellraiser.
We're reviewing Hellraiser today. You're goddamn right. Released in 1987, this one was written and directed by Clive Barker. We've got Ashley Lawrence as Kirsty. We've got Sean Chapman as Frank, although to be noted, his monster was played by Oliver Smith. We've got Claire Higgins as Julia, Andrew Robinson as Larry, and Doug Bradley. So he, in later films, he's credited as Pinhead, but at this point in time, Pinhead didn't have his name. He just says lead Cenobite. So that's pretty interesting. But anyways, take this one from the top. So the movie opens with Larry's brother, Frank. Now, Frank is a man who enjoys life to the fullest. He's basically a hedonist. He's really about pleasure, and he talks about taking things to the extreme and to the limits, and he's into real sicko deviant shit. He's that guy who looks up all types of wild boy shit on the internet.
He definitely drinks Baja Blast exclusively.
Wild man.
So he goes to a random country. I'm going to use my detective skills here to say it's a Muslim country because you hear the azan playing in the background. But anyways, so a merchant sells him the puzzle box. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out too well for him. So Nico, why don't you go ahead and tell us what happens when he actually starts playing with it?
Right. So this is a classic case of buyer's remorse where I'm just going to assume that for some reason he thought he was getting something different, but no. This is a case where he starts playing with this weird little puzzle box and is transported to the fucking pain dimension. Is there a name for that dimension given in later titles, just out of curiosity?
There might be, but I don't remember.
Okay, no, that's fair. Anyway, he gets sent to another dimension where he is, just like hundreds of barbed hooks come and pierce his skin and start tearing away at him as he experiences this simultaneous just torture moment that is also just, for him, it's just the time of his life. And death, I guess, because he leaves the mortal plane. But whenever he's there, he's surrounded by a bunch of other dudes who definitely won the Hot Topic employee costume contest. We've got Throat Lady. We've got dude who looks like a thumb. We've got Pinhead. And we've got some weird looking thing that chases him down a hallway that doesn't have a name. But anyway, it's not a good time is the point here. It's not a good time.
Oh, by the way, the one Cenobite who looks like a thumb, he's actually listed as the Butterball Cenobite.
Butterball? Like the fucking turkey?
Yes.
Yes, Butterball turkeys are young and fresh, and they cook really, really
members
well.
of the fucking pain dimension X?
I mean,
such is life.
Bro,
anyhow,
I see why they wanted the turkey to be the American bird and not the eagle. Fuck me.
So we fast forward now a couple years later to Larry and Julia. Might be a couple years, might be a couple months. The time is not distinct. So we fast forward to Larry and Julia. And first off, they've got a stepdaughter, the aforementioned Kirsty. And that's Larry's direct daughter by blood. That's Julia's stepdaughter. And they're moving into an old house that belonged to Larry's family. And we know that Frank was kind of using it as a little bit of like a hideout before his run-in with the Cenobites. Well, Larry ends up cutting himself, and Julia actually sees the floor literally absorb the blood. If only floors could do that with all stains, right, Nico?
Wait, what are you implying here?
Well, first off, I want to know why the blood disappeared, but wouldn't it be nice if we could spill apple juice on the floor and then the floor just yum, 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 delicioso?
Yum, 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 yum. Yeah, I don't want my floor saying yum, 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 yum.
I kind of do.
That sounds fucking terrifying.
I kind of do.
If that's where it stopped, then yeah, I'd be okay with it.
You would be okay with a floor that talked to you and went yum, 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 yum.
As long as clean up my mess, then yeah.
All right, bet, Dan. Next time we see
All right,
each
what are you
other
going to
in
do?
person,
What are you going to do to make this man's floor go yum, 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 yum?
Don't fucking worry about it,
You know what?
bro.
Why don't you tell me what the blood is doing, Nico?
It's seeping in because the floor is made of wood and wood is porous. But in terms of the narrative of the plot, there's something going on with Frank, who has since taken up residence, I guess you could say, and having the power of the blood that's gone through the floor, he sort of started to rematerialize. And so he talks to Julia, who you might have predicted there would have been lovers quarrel in this movie, and you'd be right. So they were kind of like on again, off again, mostly on each other a lot before the wedding, which is kind of absurd. Also, Frank is his brother, right?
Yep.
Larry's
Frank
brother?
is, yes, Larry's brother.
Right. And so Frank gets her into this real sinister plot to basically try and get other bodies up to him so that he can gnaw at them and like absorb their blood and finally regain a full corporeal form. Because as he, when we see him first, how would you describe how he looks, Dan?
You can see his brain, and then he's just like organs. And then
He looks like the Titan from Attack on Titan.
Oh, yeah, he kind of does.
Way
actually,
fucking
yeah.
worse.
Yeah, except scarier, yeah.
Yeah.
So like as he absorbs more bodies, he becomes more of a regular human. So like the first time he absorbs more bodies, then he starts to get like muscle on him. I mean, no skin still. So it's all muscle and organs and body parts and stuff. So the more people that he absorbs, the more human he becomes until finally he's like full sized, and his face at least is still pretty like muscly and not skin on it. But at least he can wear clothes now, and he looks like a normal person except for his face.
But, I mean, there's a catch though, right? Because they have a time limit here, don't they?
Yeah, because he sort of escaped the cenobytes, and nobody escapes the cenobytes.
Nobody escapes the cenobytes.
So he's trying to hurry up and become fully human before the cenobytes realize that he has escaped and come back to get him.
So that's happening. Meanwhile, Kirsty finds out about Frank and she runs out of that house. But somehow she comes into possession of the puzzle box. Now, the actual nature of this puzzle box is kind of mystical. It's kind of spooky. But basically, it can open doors to other dimensions and other realms. The first time she opens it, she kind of summons up a creature that's just an otherworldly kind of nightmarish ghoul. I mean, Nico, could you describe it?
It looks like a seahorse that was drawn by another angrier seahorse.
That's
pathetic, and I regret asking you. Dan, what's it look like?
Well, it looks like a seahorse.
Fucking
That was
thank you.
drawn by a much angrier seahorse.
You know what? That makes sense, though. That makes sense a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So-
For me, I guess.
However, she fucks around, I guess, and she opens up the dimension of the Hellraiser cenobytes, aka the pain dimension, so to speak. And Nico, so she pretty much just straight up snitches on Frank, doesn't she?
I mean, yeah, but no fucking shame. Like, I'd do the same shit.
Smart move.
So they're pretty much like, hey, you know, you've opened the box, you got to come with us. And then she's like, but it was an accident. And they're like, doesn't matter. And she's like, what about Frank? And they're like, oh shit. So she goes back there and she can't find Frank, but she does find her father. Now, little does she know, and this is kind of metal as fuck, but Frank is wearing her father's skin.
Yep.
It's
I wanted to pause for like dramatic effect there, but that's exactly what's happening. So she figures out that that's Frank because he drops his catchphrase, come to daddy.
Oh.
Hey, I'm saying that. Was that not his catchphrase?
I'm just saying, man.
The Cenobites show up and they fuck up Frank pretty badly. They hit him with the hook in the chain again, and then his dying words are, Jesus wept, and then blow, they blow him up, and it's all over then, right, Dan? That's it. Movie over.
But not really, because
damn
the house kind of implodes, catches fire and everything. So then Kirsty is standing there and she has the puzzle box and she tosses in the fire. And then throughout the movie, we've seen glimpses of some like homeless man who like follows her. So the homeless man just kind of shows up and reaches into the fire and takes the box and catches fire. And then turns out that he's a demon dragon thing. And he just kind of flies away. And then the final scene of the movie is that same merchant at the beginning, who I assume is the demon dragon person, and is sort of meant to watch over the box or something and create these situations where the box is put into people's hands or whatever. my take on that. But we see him with the box again, selling it to another person.
So let's go ahead and I guess let's break this down a little bit. So let's go ahead and start off with the audio. Dan, what'd you think of the score?
So I thought it was good. I thought it was, this one kind of fell into what I would consider, fairly standard horror music, horror score,
Really?
violins, orchestral stuff. Personally, I thought it was good. It wasn't like bad. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it just kind of fell into this, standard horror stock, I guess. One thing I did find interesting though was that apparently the original soundtrack was written by the industrial band called Coil. And the Clive Barker actually said that of the finished original score, that Coil, he loved it, and that Coil's been the only group he's ever heard on disc whose records he's taken off because it made his bowels churn.
Oh, shit.
Fuck me. Okay.
But apparently the film studio decided to rescore the movie so they didn't have to pay any royalties to the band.
Everywhere.
Apparently. So I guess it's super rare that the original score is pretty rare, but it is found on a couple like unreleased, extremely limited released albums or something.
That's super cool.
Okay. Nico, any thoughts as far as the sound design goes?
So I think that it functions and that it does its job. And this is entirely personal, as is the rest of the content on this podcast, if you weren't aware. But I didn't really like the music as much. It seemed to be, at least to me, way too theatrical and cheesy, in my opinion. Like the scene where Frank is forming for the first time into a skeleton, we have these, I couldn't stop hearing Danny Elfman throughout the movie. And like combining that with something I'll talk about when we get to the visuals was just a little bit weird, but everything else, like I didn't notice any problems with the levels or anything. The dialogue sounded good, and the effects, it made sense, and it wasn't noticeable that anything was off. So like, I think they did a good job. It was just like, I don't think it hit the same way for everyone else that it did for me there.
Okay. I mean, so personally, the scene that you're talking about where Frank materializes for the first time, I kind of liked it. It was supposed to be kind of like dark fantastical, which I know is a theme that runs through Clive Barker's work. I actually
picked up on that big time because even the visuals reminded me of that. Like, I don't know if this was intentional because off the top of my head, I can't remember which of these movies came first. Have y'all seen Labyrinth?
Labyrinth?
Yeah. Okay. Like the design and texture of some of the like gore and monsters combined with the score, it really just reminded me of like Labyrinth if it was written by Slipknot or something.
Yo, Dan, that's the one movie I was sick and you showed it to me, right?
Yeah, or were you working?
I was sick.
Sick, bruh.
Sick.
It's the one with the musician?
David Bowie.
Yeah.
Labyrinth came out first, but only by a year. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that had influence on this score or not. Because a year is like cutting it close, due to like production times and stuff. I don't know. It might have. I'm not sure.
Well, in any case, that's Nico's take on the music. Now, visuals, I want to get first dibs on this because I enjoyed it, particularly the costume design. Oh boy. I really, really like the costume design in this. And I mean, even as far as like the practical effects were all really good. The scenes where we see hooks like hooking into flesh, it looks awesome. It looks gritty and visceral. And there's a scene at the end where Frank has like 50 billion hooks in him. And it's just like at the moment before release. And I don't know, it's very good. Hard to watch. As well as, just I like the way the blood looks. And as someone who has seen my fair share of my own blood, like the blood effects were nice. If I had to give a criticism, the blood was a little runny, a little liquidy.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
But
that's it.
Perhaps a little bit bright. But outside of that, I like the blood. But Dan, what you think about the rest of the visuals, bro?
Did you like the blood?
Yeah. I'm there with you on a lot of especially the costume design and everything. It awesome. And the cenobytes really,
It's class.
yeah, I mean, and they look otherworldly and creepy and out there. These sort of special effects, like there's a couple times like when they open the puzzle box that there's like CG light, like pink dots and blue lightning and stuff. I mean, objectively, that looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't a huge budget film. I think I was reading that they, especially like near the end, when you see a lot of that, when they're killing this, or when she's like sending the cenobites back, I think I was reading that they're kind of running out of budget on that. And you can kind of tell, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, aside, like I give it a pass. It's from the 80s, and I almost feel like it adds to the charm of the movie, I guess.
True.
But I mean, other than that, I loved a lot of the visual effects, costumes, and everything.
I did want to give a quick shout out. So there was a lot of people who worked on makeup and wardrobe and stuff, but Joanna Johnston is credited for the for being kind of like lead costume on this one, and that was awesome. That was really good. Nico, what are your thoughts on the visuals? You like it more than the audio?
So I definitely did. And, it may have sounded like I was being critical earlier. And I mean, I was, but I don't dislike the aesthetic or the movie in general. It's definitely something that I thought was a little bit jarring to see, given I would call this, the beginning of this movie, kind of slow. I don't know about you guys, but just like contrasting that with the sort of like slower paced, almost family drama was just kind of like out of nowhere a little bit. But again, like I know that's what they were going for. So they accomplished it, and they did it really well. I will say that.
Now, let's go ahead and change up here. So the Cenobites, right? They would go on to be more and more of a big focus in these movies. This one, they didn't, I mean, they obviously were main characters, but they didn't have quite as much screen time as they would later on down the line. Kind of, what are they? And we can think about some of like the pain and pleasure and stuff like that. What kind of themes or genres do they elicit? Let's get scholarly here for real quick. We'll go to you, Nico, first.
Sure.
What do you think about the Cenobites?
So honestly, the thing that comes to mind for me are the paintings of Hieronymus Bosch and other painters that were like sort of not descended, but inspired by his works. You get the real sense that there is no sort of like neat unity to the aesthetic here. It's all, super extravagant, super outlandish, and it's meant to, like we've been saying, it's meant to represent the extremes of hedonism, pleasure, and pain, the sort of duality that the two have there. And to that end, I think the easiest way to think about them is just like an avatar of those ideals, of the duality of pleasure and pain, of, suffering, of euphoria, perhaps, and also probably one or two acupuncturists who got really, really mad.
So, Dan, I did want to follow up on a point with you there. So,
What was that?
you know how the Cenobites, essentially, they say they are angels to some and demons to others. They self-describe as explorers of, the extreme limits and reaches of experience and emotion. And I wonder, so, like sometimes when you're in the gym, place we can't go anymore, but back when gyms were a thing, and like you're sitting there and you're banging out like one last set, and it's like, it can be painful sometimes, but like you just know you're working through it, and when you're done, you feel so good. You just got the biggest pump, and you're just like, yes. Do you think that there may be to a certain logic to the Cenobites?
What do you mean? Like, do you think there may be a certain logic? Yeah, there's logic behind the Cenobites.
I was really hoping you were just going to say no.
Well, I mean to say that, let's say you were so hedonistic that, because we even saw a scene where, Frank had Julia so completely entranced that she was willing to do anything that he wanted. But he immediately after sleeping with her was like, it's not enough. It's never enough. And it's just like, he needed something deeper. And I wonder if, maybe when you go that down into the hole, you go so far down, you're up. Thoughts?
I mean, I guess. I think it's a lot of it is sort of face value of, pleasure and pain. And especially like this movie is very sexualized and I think, a lot of it anyways is should be taken at face value. You know, they find pleasure in pain, and inflicting pain and experiencing pain and everything. I also kind of feel like they're like almost religious, like a religious cult kind of thing, in how they kind of portray themselves, and the experiences of pleasure and pain very much came off as cultish to me. Just their demeanor.
It's like they have a reverence for everything.
Yes, that's a perfect word for it. Reverence of that. Yeah, so I think they're very cultish almost.
Got you. What's good with you, Nico? You how do you feel about it?
How do I feel about the cenobytes and their like?
Well,
logic?
First off, would you agree that they're lawful evil?
Are they lawful?
I would say they follow a certain set of rules.
True.
I don't know, and this is because I'm leaning towards yes, but like I want to say they are more chaotic just because it seemed like they might have accepted Kirsty's deal where it's like, I'll get you Frank and then you don't have to take me. Like it seemed like they were, and maybe that I just took that scene wrong, but it seems more chaotic to be like, hey, fuck your whole shit too. We're taking you as well. So,
well, if I remember correctly, they didn't actually agree to that.
He said maybe.
He said maybe. He was like, I don't know. Well, like we want Frank, but we'll see.
If you think about it, she kind of screwed them a little bit too, because they showed up and they weren't attacking her. They were like, we want the man who did this. And then she ran away. So maybe if she'd been like, yep, I will give that to you in exchange for protection or whatever, they might have said yes.
Would have been a short movie.
Yeah, but at that point in the movie, she didn't know that her dad was actually Frank.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Very true. So, and I actually had another question. So we see the cenobites. Now, later on, right, the lead cenobite would gain the name of Pinhead, and kind of the movies would be more and more about him. But in this one, he is the lead, but they all have a lot of shared screen time. There's the one with like chattering teeth. I mean, he has a lot of interaction with Kirsty. He even, gets to do a little bit of shove a finger down her throat or two, which is odd. And he also chatters at her a bunch of times, which given his chattering teeth makes sense. So, Nico, do you think that the performance in this was so strong by Pinhead, or rather, I guess I probably should say by Doug Bradley, that Pinhead, you deserve to come back as kind of like a bigger and badder?
So he definitely had the most charisma out of all of them, but this is something that really just makes me more curious as to like how the movie was marketed. Because if I went into this blind and didn't know anything about the franchise, which I pretty honestly still don't know that much about Hellraiser, but if I was going into this blind, it looks more like almost... It looks a lot more benign than the iconography and the aesthetics would show later on. And I think that considering the sort of gravitas that he brought to everything, I think it was a good move that they decided to focus more on Pinhead and the cenobytes. I mean, like, I wish they would have done that. I wish they would have done more of that in this one, but... I don't know, like, given that the rest of the movies are, to my knowledge, centered more so around the cenobites, and, you guys can both feel free to disagree or, like, whatever. This movie almost feels like a prequel more than, like, an actual starting point.
So that's interesting because, and I don't want to comment too much on future movies or have spoilers for all of those because we will tackle those down the line.
Sure.
Dan, give me a contrasting opinion there. What do you think about Pinhead in general and the cenobites?
So apparently I haven't read this, I haven't read the book. This is all based off a book that Clive Barker had written. And in the book, the cenobites are pretty equal. And it was never really intended for Pinhead to be the main one.
Really?
But due to the costume design, a lot of them couldn't speak. Or I think the female cenobite could speak, but because of the costume and the makeup, she could barely turn her head. So sort of out of necessity, Pinhead became the one to speak most and be sort of the voice of them. And then after that, the film studio kind of took it and marketed him as the sort of the main cenobite and everything.
Okay.
So it kind of took on from necessity there. I've seen the first, Justin and I think have seen the first 4, 5 ones, I believe. Pinhead does kind of become a leader, but from what I understand, a little bit later in the series too, they kind of start reverting back to like they're all equal instead
he
of
also
like him
become
being the
a-
leader.
Well, no, I'll save that for when we review it.
Yeah,
later
save
on.
that one for a rainy day. So speaking of rainy days, it was a rainy day when Frank first seduced Julia.
Beautiful.
Oh, it was.
It was raining outside, and she had him standing outside for like a full 30 fucking
Yeah, she
seconds. He was like, "Can I come in?"
come in?
And she was like smiling and shit, and I was like, "Wow!" And he was like, "Wow, can I come in?"
He's like, but really, can I come in, please?
So obviously they come in and they they cuck the shit out of poor Larry. But I'm using that word appropriately. Is that not what happens?
You
You
are
are.
using
Yeah.
it appropriately. I was just not expecting that series of words to come out of your mouth right then and there.
So I mean, is Frank a bad guy for that? Is he a bad guy in general?
I mean, he's kind of a fuck.
No, he gives the fuck. But
Oh my!
I'm saying, oh what?
I quit the podcast, guys. No,
All right,
I
so
I mean, I kind of think that like before he died, when he was human, I mean, yeah, he wasn't a very good guy, but especially like after he opened up the box and died, and then came as like coming back, and
I feel like those are two different people, though, because like one is a regular schmuck, and then the other guy is like, "Hey, I want you to drag back some poor sons of bitches so I can steal their skin." Like, there's some wiggle room with the first one, but Frank 2.0, nah.
Well, you also got to consider that he was terrified of the Cenobites. Like he really didn't want to go back.
then I feel like it's self-preservation too. I mean, he's
Yeah.
just trying to be human. So
I mean,
you know,
Nico, you would definitely sacrifice the shit out of me if you needed to be returned to corporeal form after traveling to another country. And
Well,
obtaining a
yeah, I
puzzle
would
box.
sacrifice you, but I wouldn't sacrifice random people I don't know.
I guess that's true. So let's go ahead and break this down now. So on the crime of, I guess, piping down his sister-in-law,
Jesus Christ.
I mean, is he a morally bad person? Yeah. But she clearly, I mean,
Is
felt
also
way
kind
strongly.
of a fuck.
Well,
Yeah.
she felt way more strongly about him than she did her own husband. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, he came back as like a resurrected, bloody skeleton corpse, and she was like, "I'll do it. I want you back." How must your
Yeah.
relationship be? Just out of curiosity. And honestly, from the start of the movie, she seems just generally disinterested.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't want to be in that relationship. She doesn't want to be there in general. I don't know. It's wild. But I guess, speaking of betrayals, speaking of Nico, it's time for a fan favorite segment. What would you do? So I've thought long and hard because, I mean, we know the obvious answer to what would you do if the Cenobites showed up. But
Yeah, sacrifice you.
yeah. So what would you do though? Let's say it's something where, the Cenobites, maybe they're not offering you death. Maybe they're offering you,
A new Buick Enclave? The fuck?
well, I'm saying, and it's kind of a hard thing to do here, but would there ever be something, and again, these people all did it for hedonism, for pleasure. Is there anything that would make you open that puzzle box to even experience for a second? Let's say you could open the puzzle box and there was like a 30% chance they'd fuck you over, but a 70% chance you could get away.
I think I'd do it.
For what?
I would do it to erase all of the debts of myself and my loved ones.
The debt. So do you mean
Like student debt,
financial
medical
debts?
bills,
Okay,
car bills,
okay.
like get you guys all Gucci with your funds and shit.
Okay. Dan, is there anything you do? Any reason to risk opening the puzzle box?
I don't think so, to be honest. I mean, no.
Well, is it
I
going to
mean,
be bad for just us, or is it going to be bad for everyone?
Well, okay, this is going with the rule that when the Cenobites are summoned, They go for the one who opened the puzzle box and they immediately close it back and go back home. That's what they did with Frank.
Right.
Okay.
I don't think that there's anything that I would trade for that. I think the risk is too great. I mean,
Okay, now,
for me,
question. Let's say you didn't know this thing would summon the cenobytes. You didn't know what was around that corner. And, you go off to some foreign land and in a kind of, exotic bazaar, you happen upon a merchant who is selling a wondrous puzzle box that can unlock your deepest desires, but he doesn't give more information than that. Could you honestly see yourself doing that?
Well, first I'd ask, what's in the box?
I don't think so, because I feel like I would just be weirded out. And I'd
Yeah,
just be like,
no, honestly, fuck that.
nah, I don't know, man. I don't know. What about you, Justin? Would you?
I'd hear the azan in the background and be like, bro, I gotta go pray. And you know what? I should go pray in general because this is some demonic shit you're about to offer me.
What would happen?
shit.
What would you do if one day you just get like the mailman comes and you have a package and it's the box?
All right, let me break this down for you. Sometimes I drink like bottled water.
What?
Okay.
You fucking savage. You absolute mad lad. Can you fucking believe this, Dan? He drinks bottled
God
water.
Damn it,
I don't
Justin.
even fucking know you anymore, man.
And if the bottle's like too fucked up, I won't drink the water because I'm certain someone cursed it. Or if like I live my life ready for this shit, bro. Like I'm not about to fall for this trap. I ain't solving no puzzle box. Like,
Didn't you
nah.
wrap a PlayStation controller in tinfoil for like 4 months?
Yep.
All right.
For like 2
Story-
years. Yep.
story
yeah, we
time.
did.
Years?
Story time. Dan and I, when we lived together in the haunted house, mind you,
Yep.
When
we
are we
had
going
a
to get that story?
bonus episode coming soon. We literally had a PlayStation controller. It was the red one too, wasn't
The
it,
red
Dan? It
one,
was my
yep.
it was my favorite one. It would literally randomly turn on, and like it would turn on the PlayStation. It would like pick Netflix. It'd start watching movies.
What the fuck?
Yeah, man, and we couldn't stop it.
Yeah, not just like it's always pressing to the right or something. Oop,
No,
just a
it would
faulty
pick
button. Like,
movies.
yeah, it would like go through combinations of buttons to do things.
Yo, what movies did it pick?
I don't
even
remember.
remember.
Yo, one time Dan and I came back and I was like, "Yo, did you watch that?" And he was like, "No, did you?" And then we're like,
Oh, no.
"Okay." So we took it and we wrapped it up in tinfoil, so that way it couldn't control the TV anymore.
All things considered, that's a pretty fairly reasonable response.
I'm so fucking certain it was that and the doorbell that creeped us out
Yeah,
for a
the doorbell
long
was
fucking
weird.
time. We'll get to the doorbell another time. So let's go ahead and break down our favorite scenes, though. Dan, tell me your favorite scene in this movie.
So my favorite scene is kind of an odd one out, and that's part of the reason why I liked it. Was there's a point in the movie where Kirsty starts having like nightmares, and
Motherfucker. Okay.
oh, that was yours too.
Yep.
Okay. And the first time she has a nightmare, I think it's the first time, she's like standing over, I guess, a dead body that's covered in like a cloth or something. And then just like the music in the background, and like over time, the cloth kind of becomes bloody, and she's just like standing there watching it become bloodier and in this kind of nightmare. I just really liked it because it almost felt like a different movie to me. And I don't mean that to say like, oh, well, I wish the rest of the movie could have been like that, because I quite enjoyed the whole movie, but it felt almost like a different kind of dimension, different dream, different something. And it just had a really cool vibe to it. And I just really liked that one scene.
So I also have a little bit of an offbeat scene. I'm going to pick one for myself, and then obviously I do one for the podcast. But the one for myself, and this kind of leads us a little insight into Frank. So he's talking to Julia, and he, says, "We'll be together, da 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 da." And then he goes, "Like love, only real." And that sounds like the words of someone whose heart's been broken. And if you actually look at Frank's behavior, he acts like someone who just doesn't believe in, that kind of thing anymore. Because, and think about it.
Would
like,
you?
What would drive you? Well, no. But I feel like he was like that even before he became kind of like a bloody skeleton ghost demon. Like,
Yeah, he's a fuck boy.
he was out here, like, I don't know how else to put it. He was just out here doing his business with Julia. But I don't think he really cared about his brother. Simultaneously, I don't think it was
Definitely not.
malicious. I just think he was just doing him because he didn't believe in the concept of love, which I think is deep. And the Hellraiser stuff, movies, in general, they have some cool things going on like that. But Nico, why don't you tell us your favorite scene, and then I'll cut back in case you don't mention it for the podcast.
Right, yeah. So I gotta give the same scene as Dan here. The entire just aesthetic and the feel of the scene changed. And I was thinking, and I texted Justin this while I was watching this. I'm curious to see if you agree or not, but I thought that scene was Silent Hill as shit.
It had certain
I could see that.
dreamlike properties gone wrong. Yeah.
No, I love that shit in general. If I had to pick another scene, I don't know. I liked all the scenes with Kirsty. I think she was easily my favorite character. So yeah, anytime she was on the screen, she was probably the best part of the movie, in my opinion.
She and her boyfriend are pretty much the only two likable characters.
Yeah.
Outside of Larry, who's kind of a bumbling idiot. But so I think two scenes worthy of mention are obviously first, the kind of homeless guy setting himself on fire and turning to a fucking dragon. That was pretty metal. Also the end scene where we had talked about before, where Frank kind of got it real good from the cenobites and got ripped apart. That was a real visceral scene and pretty fucking awesome, if I had to say so myself. So now, we got to balance the pleasure with pain. So go ahead and let us know a criticism that you have for the movie. Dan, criticism.
I'll say I agree with Nico, what Nico said like a while ago. He had mentioned pacing.
Right.
I really like the second half of the movie. Once Kirsty kind of starts, when she gets introduced to the cenobites, it really picks up from there. The first half of the movie, I didn't dislike, but yeah, it's definitely more of like a romance drama kind of thing with some creepiness to it. And anytime Frank just creeped me out. Like, and I guess that's a good thing because that's kind of the point, I guess. So it's not like a knock on the movie, but whether it was visually he creeps me out or just like his demeanor and what he says, like he keeps saying like,
he was super predatory.
Yeah, and just keeps saying like, come to daddy and just weird shit like that.
Fucking gag.
Of course, this movie has a lot of gore in it and like ripping people apart and stuff. But I think Frank was the only one who made me like uncomfortable. And again, I know that's like part of the point. But I guess those would be kind of my 1.5 criticisms, because the Frank thing, I guess, isn't too much of criticism because it achieved the goal, I guess. But mainly the pacing.
True. Nico, criticism from you?
So I think to sum up what I've been saying across the podcast episode is I think that this movie has some issues with tone, particularly in the juxtaposition with the soundtrack and the sort of, I think, almost more fantastical looking design choices as opposed to like demonic. I can't really explain that too much other than it just looks kind of plasticky and strange and reminds me of Labyrinth. And again, I know that's just like a me thing. So like my main criticism would be just sort of certain tensions in the movie don't really hit right for me, but in a more objective sort of look at it, I would definitely say the pacing. Like if it was 15 minutes shorter in the first half, I think this would have been an excellent movie.
Okay. I think from my perspective, I would have liked to have seen a little more action with the cenobites
Definitely.
earlier on in the movie. I think, now this is funny because I think the second movie goes some distance towards fixing some of the flaws we've mentioned.
See, I wish I would have started with 2 instead of 1, because every time when I was younger and would see Pinhead, I'd be like, oh, that's so fucking cool. But like this first movie isn't really about Pinhead. It's about an abusive family.
That's an interesting take, Nico.
They're just kind of accessory to it all. I mean, like, they're part of everything as just like the means to an end. Like, we have Frank, who's very clearly toxic and in some number of ways. And he's, his proclivities aside and whatever he's doing with his brother's wife, like, he's got some sort of there's something wrong with him, and that sort of atmosphere, I think, has pervaded into the rest of the family. The mother is absent, the father is more or less an enabler, and neither parent really gives a shit about their daughter enough to actually listen to what she wants.
That's interesting. I will also say, to clarify my thing, when I was like, is Frank a bad guy? I was specifically talking about the scene where he's with Julia, because we don't really see anything about him aside from that until later on. I think when I was discussing that, I was more separating, like you had said,
Sure.
Frank from Frank 2.0.
Yeah. No, I get you there.
So I guess there's that. Although his brother did say, like, oh, he's probably in jail somewhere. But so criticism. I think that, like I had said, more action. But also, and this is something that just came to my mind just now, I think Julie is a real piece of shit.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, squad consensus.
Sin fucking sincerely. Because if you think about it, she enables this whole movie to happen.
Yeah, literally. I would actually say that she's probably objectively the worst person in the cast in terms of like morality and whatever. Like, she's definitely worse than Frank.
All right, so let's go ahead and crack on to the critical review. So this has got, and this is the closest we've seen critics and audience, on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 71 for critics and a 73 from the audience.
Wow.
Agree or disagree?
Agree. That's
Mostly agree.
pretty much right where I would put it. Maybe a little higher just for, maybe a little higher, 76.
Nico?
For me, just like my own, like, I know this
Yes,
is just
it's
me.
you. It's you.
I would give it like a 63, but I completely understand why this has the legacy that it does, and I really do genuinely look forward to watching the sequels later on for the pod.
I think you'll like number 2 more, if I had to guess. But for me personally, I would actually give this movie, and again, obviously, like you said, Nico, personal. I give this one an 80. Now, the reason why is because I think for me, some of the concepts explored in this movie, and just, I think if you watch this movie in the right context, in the right kind of light and all that, also keep in mind when this movie came out. I think a lot of these concepts that get talked about and just some of the scenes in general would have been much more shocking back in 1987.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, I'm not going to compare it to standards because obviously, I mean, guys, this film is 33 years old.
That's older than us.
It's older than us.
Not by much, but still.
Nico, is it older than you?
Yeah, it's older than me. I'm definitely part of us.
Yep.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, now we have to answer this question. Would we recommend this movie to someone else? Dan, would you recommend this to someone else?
It's a yes from me.
Nico?
Actually, yes.
Justin? Yes. Okay, cool. So it's going to get a yes. Now, is this going to get the golden seal of approval? Nico?
No, I'm sorry.
It's dead in the water because Nico said no. Dan, would you have said yes?
No, I would have said no. It's not. I mean, it's good. It's a classic. Horror people should watch it, but
It is definitely a classic. I do want to stress that.
Yeah. I also, in good faith, could not give it the golden seal of approval. As much as I love this movie and the concept and everything else, I couldn't. But, I mean, there you have it. There's Hellraiser. So yeah, if you like what you've heard, or if you want to tell us why we're wrong, please go ahead and reach out. We're on Twitter and Instagram at DOTD Horror. You can also find us on Facebook. Don't open that door. But that's been it from Nico, Dan, and Juss. We want everyone to, keep yourself safe, especially if you're exploring pain and pleasure. Always have a safe word. And please, ladies and gents, don't open that door. Have a nice night.